As this is the first planning meeting of the new year, I'd like to wish everyone a healthy and happy 2022. This planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, and we will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings, and I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Geraint, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got apologies from Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Hugh Bevan, thank you. Are there any apologies from the floor? No? Right, thank you. On to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Geraint, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
No problem, thank you, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Burnett.
Yes, Chair. In application 5, which is 21/P/O884/FUL, it's the Sycamore Court Tentless. I declare personal and prejudicial as the applicants are neighbours and I know them so well. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Constance?
No interests, thank you.
Councillor Crick?
No interest, thank you.
Councillor Stephen Evans?
None I'm aware of, thanks.
Councillor Hawler?
No interest.
Councillor Gaynor James?
No interest.
Councillor Keith James?
No interest.
Thank you. I don't think Councillor Jenkins has joined us. Councillor Faye Jones?
Yes, can I just get a personal prejudicial interest in, I think it's items 5 and 6.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janet Jones?
Yes, under application 21/P/0601/FUL, as the ward councillor for Glenavon, and I do know the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Don't think Councillor O'Connell has joined. Councillor Parish?
Nothing to declare, thank you.
Thank you. And I don't believe the last two are in the meeting either. I think that's it, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. We go on to agenda item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee from the 18th of November. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Janet?
No, approved, sorry, Chair.
Approving it, right. You're all approving it.
Afternoon, Chair. I've managed to get on. Sorry about this.
Okay, Stuart.
Chair, would it be okay if I just come back in and just ask Councillor Ashley to declare any interest that he may have, please?
Yes, please.
Yes. Sorry about that, Chair. I'm just having terrible problems getting on. I'm going to have to come out for the last item. Planning 6. I came out for the last time you had that. That's the only one I think that's the only one. I'm a governor for Maindy School, and I remember the last time you had that, I had to come out.
Okay, Stuart.
Councillor Ashley, it's Polly Ellis from Legal Services. I think you might also want to declare a personal interest as a member of Cumbraen Community Council.
That's what I mean, yeah, personal interest. So the last time we had one of these, I came out.
Yeah, so you've got personal interest in both agenda item 5 and 6 as a member of Cwmbran Community Council.
Is Sycamore Court in Henters or Cwmbran? I don't know.
It's not in Cwmbran.
Right,
No, I didn't think it was, so I don't have a declaration for that.
No, you don't know. It is Henters has got his own
council.
council.
Ron. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah, but is Maindy Primary School is in Cwmbran Community Council?
I've just declared I'm a governor. The last time we did that, you made me go out, so I'm assuming I have to go out as well.
Yeah, you've got two separate declarations, though. You've got a personal interest as a member of Cwmbran Community Council, who's been consulted on the application, and you've also got a personal and prejudicial interest in it because you're a member of the governing body, and you will have to just come out for that application completely, but you need to make both declarations of interest.
Let that be, if I may. Thank you.
Okay. All right, no problem. Thank you.
Sorry about being late. I would have done this beforehand.
It's okay.
Okay.
I wasn't late. I've just had terrible problems getting in at the moment. It's not behaving itself, computer. It is now. Sorry about that, Chair.
Stuart. Okay. Right, we'll go back to agenda item 3, the minutes. Nobody's got anything to raise in relation to it, so I'll take it then as we all agree. Yes, thank you. Agenda item 4, planning application 21/P/0601 FUL, and it's change of use from cadet hall / office building for maintenance company to 2-bedroom bungalow and associated work at Cadet Centre, Upper Wayne Street, Blaenavon. Can I ask Tanya Leck, planner, to present the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Just share my screen with the presentation. Can you see that, Chair?
Yes, I can see it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so this is an application for a change of use from a cadet hall to a 2-bedroom bungalow. Just to mention before I go into the main presentation, there are 2 additional conditions that are proposed. So firstly would be to remove householder permitted development rights for the dwelling. And I'll go on to that a little bit further later on. Also, the second condition would be to add a condition requiring further details of the windows. So sections showing the recesses, stone sills and full details of the windows. So the conversion would result in a 2-bedroom bungalow with amenity space to the rear. You can see the floor plan here. And the site plan, which shows the garden area to the rear of the dwelling. You can see the site location plan here. It's currently a single-storey cadet hall on the east of Upper Wayne Street in Blaenavon. Here are the existing plans. This is the front elevation as existing. So the footprint of the building would be retained with external alterations, including a front canopy porch, shown here, a new roof on the existing projection, and alterations to the fenestration and external materials. So they've proposed roof slates. They would render the walls and paint them, obviously change the windows and doors as shown here. The front boundary wall is also proposed to be levelled with black railings installed, and the wall would also be rendered to match the dwelling. So I'll just show a few photos then of the site. So this is the building as existing. You can see the wall here is stepped, so this would be levelled out. This is the highway in front, and the reason this is being reported to committee is due to concerns from both ward members regarding highways and parking provision. So there is no parking provision proposed for the application. We have looked at whether one space could be accommodated, but unfortunately, due to the ground levels and the manoeuvres that would be required, this hasn't been considered possible. So we are looking at the application as is, so that's without any parking provision. The full details are set out in the report regarding the parking, but the condition relating to householder extensions and removing those permitted development rights, that's proposed to stop there being any additional development there, such as another bedroom, which would require an additional car parking space. There's a few more photos here, so this shows the surrounding streets. So this top one is stood at Upper Wayne Street, and then Lower Wayne Street is here. These photos, you can see this tight corner here, and there's a bollard there, and then parking along the highway, which we saw at the committee site visit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tanya. I haven't seen any hands going up, questions, so I do now. Stuart?
Chair, as I went out on the site visit, I think the proposals are measured and responsible for the building. I think it's totally acceptable, and as it adds the building stock as it's proposed, in terms of the sensitivity of the area, I think it's perfectly acceptable. I also take the view of the ward councillors, because they were very they took the view about the parking, but the parking is what it is around that area, and I take their view. They've got a lot of parking there, and as it's stated by the planning officers, the problem with parking in that area is what it is as well. I take the view that we should allow this. It's another unit. There's and that's the way to look at it. It's within the heritage area, which we got as well. The planning officers are making sure that the thing is as it should be in Blaenavon. I think it's an acceptable thing, bearing in mind the parking is, as one of the ward councillors said, is never going to be satisfactory. I think we need to state that. But they, it's another housing unit, and that's all really we can say about it. As such, I'd like to propose it, unless anybody else has got anything they want to say about it. As I was out on the visit, and you were as well, Chair.
Yes, I was there too, and I agree with you, Stuart. I mean, there's on-road parking, and the highways have not objected to it.
No.
So yes, it's.
So unless anybody else has anything burning to say about it, I like to propose it, but bearing in mind that more councillors have to say something now.
Yeah, okay, Stuart, thank you, you proposed it.
I
Janet?
second that, Chair.
Yes, Chair. Just to say that the comments, I won't make any more comments. They were received at the site meetings, and just to thank you and the officers for coming along and listening to what Councillor Evans and I had to say. And I think we did note on the day that, whilst we concerned, we had no objections in principle of it moving forward.
Yes. So are you seconding Stuart's proposal, Janet?
Yes, I second that, Chair.
Right, thank you. Been proposed and seconded. I can't see any other hands coming up. So, Geraint, can I ask you to ask the members if they are for, against or abstaining from this application?
Yep, no problem, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Burnett.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Crick.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Haller.
For.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
For.
Councillor Faye Jones.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For, with the conditions set out by our officers. Geraint.
Councillor Parish.
For.
I'm just double checking for you, Chair, but I think that's everybody. I don't think anybody's come into the meeting late. No, that's it, Chair.
Thank you. So that's unanimous. This planning application has been approved. Thank you. Right, we'll go on to agenda item 5. Planning application 21/P/0884/FUL, and it's for detached dwelling with replacement garage and associated works at 10 Sycamore Court, Hentless, Cumbran. Can I ask Tanya Leck, planner, to present the report, please?
Chair, I'm going to leave the meeting now. Forget it and can come back to me when it's over.
All right, you had a prejudicial interest in
Yes,
this?
yes.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chair. Yes, so this application is for a new dwelling in the garden area of number 10 Sycamore Court. So I just wanted to note to members that there's 2 corrections to the information given at the committee site visit that are listed in the agenda. So those notes are on page 41 and 42 of the agenda, just for reference. So the first matter, which is just a point of clarification, during the committee site visit, I gave a summary of the site history, and I said that the boundary wall along the front of the site had been erected without the benefit of planning permission. Historically, this was, but the applicant has now submitted some extra information just to show that that was actually part of the original application that dealt with the change of use to garden area. So it's not material in this decision, but just clarification for the record. The second point is to do with the trees on the site. So we discussed that there was one tree on the site proposed to be removed. During the meeting, I said that that was an elm tree, but apologies, that is a beech tree. There was an elm tree that had previously been removed on the site. So since the site visit, feedback with the applicant, they have actually agreed to retain that tree. So yes, I just wanted to clarify those points. So yeah, the application is for a 2-storey, 3-bedroom detached dwelling. It has a replacement single garage and car parking provided along the front of the site here on the existing hard standing. So material to this application, we have previously dealt with an application at this site which we refused. So those reasons of for refusal were firstly due to the siting of the dwelling and the boundary treatments. It was considered to conflict with the existing pattern of development and was detrimental to the character of the area. The second reason for refusal was due to the proximity to the existing dwelling number 10. On the scale and height of the proposed dwelling, it would adversely impact on the living conditions of number 10. So this application has been submitted in an attempt to overcome those reasons for refusal. So what I'll do now is run through the changes that have been submitted. So there's a lot of detail on these plans, so hopefully as I run through it, you'll be able to see. But this was the previous scheme. This is the proposed scheme now. So previously the house was set behind number 10. This is their garden area. And it was close to the property, the existing property. It was also 2 metres higher than number 10. So the new scheme, the proposed scheme, they have moved the dwelling forward. They've reduced the height, so it's only ½ a metre higher than number 10. And this distance between the properties, between the side elevations, has been increased. So cumulatively, those changes we feel have overcome the previous reason for refusal. Also the resiting of the dwelling, and they've proposed to reduce the front boundary wall so that the property will address the street scene, and that's more in keeping with the character of the area. So you can see they've submitted this street scene plan here. So this is the existing dwelling number 10. This is the proposed dwelling with this single garage. this boundary wall is existing and they're going to drop it here to 0.9 metres. So you'll be able to see into the site and see the dwelling. There's a sample of the materials proposed shown here too. And then just some site visit photos here. So this is from in front of the site. You can see the existing building that would be removed. This is number 10. And just some photos of the garden area as existing. This is looking up into the site. This is looking back down towards the access. And a few photos of Sycamore Court and the character there. So you can see these are the original dwellings that were here. This is number 10. This is a new dwelling at the top of Sycamore Court that you can see as you drive in. And the house would be roughly here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. I haven't seen any hands going up. Any questions? Stuart?
Mike, I thank you for the bit about the tree, because I think when we were on site, that was the thing that stuck out for us. There's a huge parcel of land. It looks like a valley going up when you look up. Have you got any pictures of that, by the way, so members could have a look at that at all? I don't know if you have pictures. It was very prevalent. It didn't look like there was housing behind it, and that was the bit that did stick out for members. I think, yes, you have got a photograph of that. If they're retaining that tree, I think we were. Hey, that's nice image you got there. The house will the house you're talking about actually be stuck on top of this garage here, won't it? So that was the character of this site that I think that we did pick up on. Steve probably add some more to this. But I mean, I'm quite happy to go ahead with this if that's being retained, because a mature beech tree like that adds a whole lot to a landscape like that. And I was worried that actually that was going to be taken out. But this site does look like it's been there for, time immemorial. And in fact, it's a housing estate. There's a lot of natives in there.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Stuart. Anyone else want to comment? Steve?
Yeah, it's only to follow on what Stuart has said. Can somebody just remind me what mitigating things we put in to cover the loss of the habitat stuff there? Because there was a good parcel of land, is a brook, and you're concerned with hedgehogs and everything else. I know you said there was something when we visited, but I can't remember what you did say.
Can you come back in, Tanya?
Yeah, cool. So there's a package of mitigation they've proposed. So they're looking at installing bat boxes and bird boxes and some planting. So the works that would be done, most of that would be retained. There is some kind of maintenance works to trim things back, so where the vegetation on the side, but along the stream and the brook, that would all be retained. There's one small ornamental tree which would be removed. But yeah, that's the overall package that they've submitted.
Well, I'd come back in, Chair. The other part I was going to think about was there was one concern about the tree which was under the drain. So was that accommodated within the plan?
That is the tree.
Yeah, so that's the tree I was referring to.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to make sure it was that particular one and not the one up the front.
Yeah, sorry. There's a TPO oak tree at the front of the site which would be protected during development. That beech tree is near a Welsh water fowl sewer, so they did look at removing that, but they've since agreed to retain that. Hope that clarifies.
Thank you. Stuart?
I think on the basis that they put all this back in, I'm prepared to accept this, to be honest, and propose it. But I think Veronica wants to add something before that.
Okay, then, Veronica.
Yes, if I could just come in about the beech tree and the drain. Sometimes you can do things to mitigate roots of trees like beech trees. Has that been considered in this particular instance? Because it can be a real problem if the roots do get into the drainage system.
Can you come back in, Tanya?
Yeah, that would be something that would need to be investigated with Welsh Water. Usually if there was an issue with the drains, they would be involved. So if we have looked at the application, and obviously knowing that that is so close to the drain, we have made the applicants aware that if they did need to look at works later on with that tree, that they would need to survey it for that. So you know, if that happened later, that there was an issue, they would have to speak to Welsh Water. They would be involved in terms of interference with the drains and the tree roots.
So it's not near the gas pipe at all either?
No, not a gas pipe. It's a foul water sewer.
Right, okay. So you're saying that if you do anything with a beech tree, you have to get permission and also get it sorted out with regard to bat roosts too?
They wouldn't need permission to remove that tree. It's not protected by a TPO.
That's what I thought, but when you were saying about the bats, I couldn't quite understand that.
Sorry, yeah, just to mention that we've made them aware they would need to do further exploratory works and investigations at that time if it did become necessary, the works for that tree.
Okay. So generally speaking then, apart from those concerns which seem to have been more or less resolved, otherwise everything's fine.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
As I said, I propose this because our concerns were around that. Thank you, Veronica, for bringing that back a bit more.
To second that.
Thank you, Janet. Did you want to say anything else, Veronica?
Sorry, Veronica.
I was just seconding it and Janet came in, so there's no problem.
Apologise.
Then, right, it's been seconded. So, Geraint, could you go around the members, please, for, against, or abstentions?
No problem, Chair. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to confirm. Councillor Dave Thomas entered the meeting recently and has declared that he's got no interest to declare. But also Councillor O'Connell has joined the meeting, so I just wanted to give him an opportunity to whether or not he's got any declarations himself.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, no declarations. Apologies for my late attendance, and obviously I won't be voting on this matter as I joined midway.
Okay, then.
No problem, thanks. If I can start with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Crick.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Haller.
For.
Councillor Gaynor James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
For.
Councillor Faye Jones.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor O'Connell said he'd joined late, so he won't vote. Councillor Parish.
For.
And Councillor Thomas.
For.
Oh, right, that's unanimous, Chair.
Right, thank you. Right, this planning application has been approved. Thank you. Right, we go on to agenda item 6.
This is where I leave you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Yes,
We've also got to get Councillor Burnett back in.
All right, I'll wait for Councillor Burnett to come back in.
Yeah,
and you let me know when Councillor Ashley has left the meeting too.
Yeah, he's gone. Councillor Ashley's gone. I'll just try and get Councillor Burnett back in, so I'll let you know as soon as he's back, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Burnett's back in the meeting now, Chair.
Thank you, Geraint. We thought we'd lost you, Ronnie.
I'm back.
Right, good. Agenda item 6, planning application 21/P/0900/FUL. And is for demolition of existing school buildings and redevelopment to comprise erection of new primary school with new vehicle access, associated Flying Start childcare facility and works at Maindy Junior and Infant School, Wayfield Crescent, Northville, Cwmbran. And are we making Tanya work today? Can I ask you, Tanya, planner, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you'll all be bored of seeing me soon.
No, we're not.
Yeah, so I'll just share my screen again. Here we go. Yeah, so this is for the redevelopment of Maindy School. So members will remember that we had the application for the temporary school at the north of the site. So we dealt with that at Planning Committee recently. So just to note, there's been 2 updates to the conditions since the publication of the report. So the conditions I'm referring to are on page 64 of the agenda. The first one is the removal of the condition asking for the submission of a scheme for electric vehicle charge.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, I can see the...
See this.
It has its benefits anyway.
All good to go now, Chair, and we've reported that to IT.
Right. Thank you, Geraint.
We never have this with Chris on.
Yeah, so it's back to you now, Tanya, and we're all going to switch our cameras off to see if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is the application for the redevelopment of Maindy Junior and Infant School. So members will remember that we've recently dealt with the application for the temporary school at the north of the site, which was dealt with at committee. So there were two updates to conditions. The conditions are listed on page 64 of the agenda. So condition 19, which referred to the submission of a scheme for electric vehicle charging points. The applicant has subsequently submitted a scheme for that, which I'll show to members later on in the presentation. So we no longer require that condition, and that's now been linked into an earlier condition requiring that the car parking spaces and now the electric vehicle charging points are also provided before the new school is in operation. The second change to conditions is relating to condition 17. So this was a condition put on to retain an oak tree towards the north of the site. The applicant has submitted further information to evidence why that unfortunately isn't possible. So again, I've got more information later in the presentation, but just wanted to note those changes up front. So that condition's now been removed. So this application is for the redevelopment of Maindy Junior and Infant School, which is part of the 21st Century School programme. So it involves the new school shown here, which would increase the capacity of Maindy Primary School from 231 to 420 places, and the nursery would increase from 24 to 30 places. This is proposed to provide capacity for the growth in pupil demand, and particularly from South Sebastopol. The development also includes a new access off Maindy Way, shown here, and a new a temporary construction access, which would come off Cumbrae Drive. There's the new nursery building here in the corner of the site, so that's the Fly and Start nursery. And then other external works include the car park, shown here. There's the outdoor play areas, which include 2 muggers, a mini football pitch, and then there's outdoor seating areas and a Forest Schools play area as well. So the site is within the flood zone as defined by by NRW's flood maps. So just to show a visual of that, so you can see at the moment the infant school is within the highest risk of flood, which is flood zone C2, and the junior school is in zone B, a lower risk of flood, with the rest of the site not being in the flood zone. So as a result of this development, it would improve the overall situation on site in regards to flooding. The main school building would be approximately here, which would be in zone B, with the access not in the flood zone. And then the play areas, outdoor play areas, would be the areas which are in the flood zone, the C2 flood zone. So here are some images of the school. There's a 3D mock-up here, so you can see this is the school hall, which is set forward from the rest of the school as a feature, and then you've got the entrance next to it. There's landscaping along here and through the car park just to soften the views down from Maindy Way. This is the nursery building, so you can see this is in the corner next to the access. Due to the levels here, that there's a bank in here and a retaining wall, so this being single story, you can see it'll barely be visible from Maindy Way. So onto the tree. So I mentioned earlier that there was an oak tree that we were originally looking to retain. So it's this one here, T3, which is a common oak tree. It's noted in the tree report that it's a category B tree. So we were looking at retaining that. So you can see here where the mugger is. It's so close to that tree within the root protection area. So we had gone back to the applicant to ask for further information as to whether they could have a methodology for the construction to retain that tree. So they've come back with information that this was submitted as part of the application, which is their design process. So you can see here, in order to retain that root protection area and retain the health of the tree, they need to reduce these outdoor play areas or cut off the corners, which would result in an under provision of outdoor play areas, which was considered unacceptable. They've now also looked at whether these play areas could be moved, but that would have an adverse impact on the flood modelling that's been done on the site. Also, the site is really constrained in terms of it being an existing school site and things needing to move around on that site and get everything in there. They've also looked at potentially increasing the levels here so that they wouldn't need to excavate around that tree. However, again, they've submitted evidence that that would have an adverse impact on the flood modelling and may result in an adverse impact outside of the site, so increased runoff to other areas nearby. They've also looked at could they construct a retaining wall here, but again, it's coming too close into the root protection area and it wouldn't allow for the retention of that tree long term. It would have an adverse impact on the health of that tree. So the council's tree officer has subsequently also been to site. So they have advised that where this group of poplars that run along the boundary with Cumbrae Drive, this tree is dwarfed by those trees, and as such it would never grow to full maturity as it would in another place. They've submitted no objection to the tree being removed, and they feel that it could be mitigated for in a landscaping scheme. So reluctantly, we have accepted the loss of this tree given the wider benefits of the school redevelopment. And there is a condition requiring a full landscaping plan so we can ensure this is fully mitigated for. So we had a few questions at the committee site visit that I said I would come back on. So one of them was for electric vehicle charging points. So you can see here we've got this scheme which involves 6 electric vehicle charging points, one of which being a disabled space. So that meets the 10% in accordance with national policy. They've also got some dedicated car sharing spaces as well here. We also had a question regarding the active travel routes to the school. So there are traffic-free routes which come along the canal tow path. There's this cycle path, here's the school, and come along Cumbrae Drive. There's also a traffic-free link then from Cumbrae train station shown here. There are also further improvements to those cycling routes. They haven't been constructed yet, but are hoped to be done in the next 2 years, I think. There was also a query regarding traffic calming measures on Mainly Way. So there is nothing proposed with this application. If there were issues that occurred, it would need to be raised with education and the Highways Department to consider whether any traffic calming measures were considered appropriate there. No objections were submitted from the Highways team. So just to show a few photos of the school. So this is looking down from Maindy Way. You can see the difference in the ground levels here. The oak tree is there that I was referring to. These are the views along Maindy Way then either way. So you can, Cumbraland Drive is beneath this bridge, and then you would turn left here. And there's just some more photos of the site there just to show the relationship with Northville. The Fly and Start nursery would be here. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tanya. Right, we can all put our cameras back on now. Right, thank you. I've seen two hands go up with questions, Jason and Janet. Geraint, have I missed anyone?
No, just Councillor O'Connell. Well, now Councillor Evans. You got Councillor O'Connell, then Jones, then Evans, I believe.
Yes, that's what I got. Thank you, Geraint. Jason, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question relates to the current access. So at the moment, the school is accessed via Wayfield Crescent. Is that going to be completely closed off? So there'll be no further access to the school from that site, because I know that presents a problem for people currently. And with the proposed new access on Maindy Way, has a review been done of the potential of moving that traffic from Wayfield Crescent in the mornings to the site at Maindy Way, and how that will potentially back it up onto that roundabout as you come over Cumbraland Drive?
Yeah. Shall I come in, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so in regards to the existing access, it would be retained as a cycle and pedestrian access only. There is the drop-off area, which is outside of the site, so we would have no control in terms of stopping people using that, but the access to the school would be pedestrian and cycle only, and given that it was likely to be easier to come in on the Maindy Way access for people who are driving, it's envisioned that would reduce pressure in Northville then. In terms of the new access, the travel plan was submitted with the application, which Highways have looked at. It was looked at before Paul retired, so he'd seen that and considered the additional traffic coming in on that route, and they were satisfied with the information submitted.
Okay, good to go. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Janet, you are next on the list.
Thanks, Chair. I see the landscape officer is concerned that the facility for the forest school areas and the childcare facilities are close to the main road, with possible consequences of air pollution and noise. Have we got anything to mitigate that, please, Tanya?
Yeah, so this was something that we looked at. The school is existing, you know, those play areas are already exposed to the to those roads that are so close to the school, so it wouldn't worsen any situation. The environmental health officer has reviewed it, and they noted that the pollution levels didn't exceed the standards. So whilst no, it's not ideal, the site, again, as noted earlier, it's really constrained. I think where they would move things round to move, all of the play areas are going to need to be close to those boundaries. So yes, I definitely note the concern that we didn't have kind of an alternative in this instance, I'm afraid.
Thanks. It is a bit worrying as we're supposed to be making ourselves a cleaner and greener facility, and the effect that pollution could have with the higher levels of traffic using that on children's health.
Do you want to come back in, Tanya? Or...
No, I think that's okay.
Okay,
did you say the how can I say, the pollution would be higher or the same as it is now?
Yeah, it's an existing school site, so that use is there already with the play areas. Like when children are playing outside, the play areas are next to Maindy Way. So environmental health haven't objected. So yeah, whilst those concerns are noted, we would need an objection, I think, from environmental health, perhaps, in terms of if that was deemed unacceptable.
Okay, so it's the same level as it is now, they'd expect in the new development. Yes? Yeah.
So, Chair, that'd be a bit concerning, bearing in mind that we're increasing the number of pupils expected to go to that school. I would have thought there would be an increased number of vehicles going back and forth. So, but I take on board what you say, but it is a matter of concern.
Yes.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Chair.
It isn't ideal, but it's the road. It won't be the parents bringing the children in with their cars. It's the road, is it? It's next to the road, but they won't be using that road. They'll be coming in from another side. Yes, have I got it right?
Yeah, it's from Cumbrae Drive, so obviously that's adjacent to the site. There is the band of trees along there, which provides some screening, and a further landscaping plan would be submitted and approved.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Steve?
That's all right, I'll carry on from that. You lined me up nicely. I was the one on the site visit raised concern about particularly coming from Cumbrae Drive because of the volume of traffic, the speeds and everything. So I still got concerns regarding that, even though we haven't come to a conclusion. You know, and I agree with what everybody says. If there's going to be more people using the school and bigger numbers, you can have more volumes of traffic and everything else. That's that bit. The second bit is with the oak tree and with us as a council doing climate emergency to make sure we try and keep as much as we can. Are we doing enough to mitigate the loss of that tree? Because we don't see the mitigation, so how do we know we're doing enough to cover that loss? Okay,
thanks for that.
Yeah, I'll come back firstly on the highways concerns. So I think your concern was just about the overall volume of traffic coming to the school. So as part of the traffic plan that was submitted, the school look at what they can do to encourage people to walk and cycle rather than everyone drive. So in that plan, you know, they've put forward that most people in the catchment area are within walking distance. So obviously lots of the properties in Northville. Also, they are running things like the walking bus, which will encourage children to walk to school. So they are aware of that and looking at ways that they can reduce the number of people driving to school. It's obviously an issue in all areas, but especially for a new school. So in terms of the oak tree, we did look at retaining that, and as you say, there is a climate emergency. It's high on the agenda to retain them where we can, so that's why we'd gone back, put on that condition, because it was originally proposed to be removed. So you know, we tried to do that, but where they're submitting justification in terms of the flood risk, outdoor play areas for children, we have to balance that out. So it is regrettable that that can't be retained. As you say, we'll get a landscaping scheme submitted, and then as part of that landscaping scheme, our ecologist, our landscape officer and tree officer would all have input into that, and they would look at trees that have been lost or any vegetation that's been lost, and then look at what's proposed. And the landscaping plan goes into such detail that it requires species, how many are being planted, the distance between them, so we can then make an assessment as to whether that's fully mitigating for what's been lost.
Yeah. If I can come back in, the reason is I sit on the beacons and I see this a lot with planning and everything else. The reason I raised about the traffic thing is because we're looking to make the school bigger, which we've already discussed, but these people are more likely going to be driving because they're coming from South Sebas. So that's the concern I'm raising, because it is going to be more volumes of traffic, I would imagine, because they have to come further afield. So.
Yes, that's the point. Steve. Veronica?
Sorry, my clock. Yes, thank you, Chair. There's a few things I wanted to raise, all actually connected with the positioning of the school and in relation to the increased school population and the general increase in population in that area of Cwmbran that's going to be feeding the school. So I have concerns about Cwmbran Drive and how safe that boundary is between Cwmbran Drive and the school. If, for example, a lorry had a blowout and went off down the side into the school grounds, how is that going to be mitigated for? What sort of safety barriers are being put in there? The Cwmbran Drive itself, if people were walking from the South Sebastopol area and the new developments along there, what sort of crossings will there be for the children to be able to get across the road? I haven't seen anything about that. And, you know, thinking in terms of, for example, at Llanarafon, where they have children coming from Llanfrecfa, there is a crossing on the A4042, which is incredibly dangerous at peak times, and there's no footbridge. So is there any mitigation like a footbridge being considered along Cwmbran Drive? Then you mention about the trees, and at the moment they're poplar trees. Well, poplar trees have a relatively limited life. So is there going to be a plan within what's being discussed for replacement of those trees over a period of time, so that you're always going to have some kind of green boundary, because obviously that's helping to provide the lungs for the school?
Yeah, thank you. I'll come in on those. So the first matter was to do with Cwmbran Drive and vehicles on that road close to a school. So I hope it's okay for me to share my screen just to show you on Street View. So you can see the barriers is existing on Cwmbran Drive, and then you've got the footpath, a verge, and then this is an acoustic barrier which we've conditioned would need to be reinstated after the development. So that's there as existing. There's nothing additional as part of this application. In terms of other items you mentioned, such as crossings or footbridges, there's nothing proposed as part of this. It would link into the existing active schools network. So I think on the presentation it showed those routes, the active travel routes with cycle routes that are traffic free, and then these would be improved. So there are these improvements which have been approved and are in the process of being brought in, but that's not part of this planning application here today, and that's part of the wider council scheme to improve those routes. And finally then, in terms of the trees, so the trees that would be retained as part of the development would be managed in the same way of trees on other council sites and other school sites, where there's, you know, management plans for those sites where they're inspected, and if they need to be felled, then obviously there's a decision that needs to be made in terms of what happens in terms of replacements or mitigation, but that wouldn't form part of this application. That kind of goes into the general running of the council as a whole and how they manage trees on their school sites.
I think there the worry is, for example, over the last 18 months, there have been a tremendous number of trees cut down on Cumbrawn Drive and on the A442, which acted as sound barriers as well as green barriers to clean the air. And if you leave it to that stage, you've then got no screen for at least 10 years, probably, that's going to be really effective. So there does need to be some continuous cycle going on and planning of replacement.
I can feed back to the Education Department that there's concerns about those poplar trees on a long-term basis, just to flag that as a concern that's been raised.
You know, if there's some kind of planning, forward planning that we can see going on in relation to something like that, I think it then makes more sense. But at the moment, it seems as if it's just a stopgap almost that we're talking about, which doesn't help resolve the health problems that could arise. I think we're all very much more conscious of the problems that can occur because of particulates from emissions from vehicles, and those aren't going to die away in the next 5 to 10 years and possibly much longer in terms of green vehicles coming in.
Yeah, I don't have that information to hand, I'm sorry, in terms of the long-term plan for those trees. What I've got is looking at the trees as part of the development and those to be retained and those to be removed. But I can definitely feed back to the Education Department and ask for information on how they manage the site going forward and how, you know, their long-term plan in terms of the trees.
I think perhaps Helen Smith has got some comment to make there, Chair.
Yes, I
do feel it's something we need to be considering long term in all our sites now where we're putting in housing, etc., and they're close to what are increasingly major roads with very heavy traffic.
Right, we'll have Helen Smith come in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to help try and address Councillor Crick's comments. I mean, obviously the poplar trees at the moment are in relatively good condition, but yes, we are aware that they don't particularly have a long-lasting life. I am aware that our ecology team are working on a tree strategy for the borough, and I know part of that includes trees on council land as well. So it may be something, I'm not fully aware of the full details or where they are with that strategy at the moment, but maybe that is something that we can feed back into that strategy to have that continuous review and, just ensuring that we have that continuity of replacing trees as and when they're needed. So we're certainly happy to pass that on to our ecologists for consideration.
I think as a long-term plan, that's incredibly important. Unfortunately, I won't be here to see whether that happens or not, so I hope some of the other members will take it on board.
Right, thank you, Helen, for coming in then. Right, are there any other questions? No? Right. Can I ask a member to move a proposal then?
I'll move that, Chair.
Yeah.
Right, is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Yes, it's been seconded. Right, Geraint, we're asking you now to go around the members in alphabetical order to state for, against or abstaining.
No problem, Chair. If I can start with Councillor Bennett.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Crick.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Hawler.
For.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
For.
Councillor Faye Jones.
Faye, you there? Oh, perhaps she's had problems.
No, I'm having problems with my microphone. Yes, I am here. For. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor O'Connell.
For.
Councillor Parish.
For.
and Councillor Thomas.
4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Right, unanimous, and that planning application now has been approved. Right, that was the last item on the agenda for today. So I'd like to thank you, everyone, for your attendance and your contributions, and I'll close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.